Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ascendant Art Podcast. I see from our little stat line, we got 3 people watching, which probably means my login, Slender's login, and Tina. Hey, Bad Take Bojan News here. Thanks for being loyal and watching the show. I appreciate that you're always here. Slender Dad is joining me as always. How are you, Slender?
I'm good. Would you
So
forget what my name was? There's a Slender Dad.
I was trying. I was trying to remember whether I generally refer to you as Slender this early, but yeah, whatever. It's cool. We took last week off, so we're off our game because Slender had old man injuries.
I got injured, okay? I have an
So
old injury from my time in the military. It's called the hip flexor. I tore mine real bad, and it reminded me of that when I tried to move a table.
why don't you got like the flooring, right? Put them on the little felt sliders so you can just move it around. Slide
It was
it
just
around.
it was a folding table. I was like, these aren't that heavy. So I leaned over to pick it up, and then I was like, oops, these are heavier than I thought, apparently.
Well, something had to give, and it was Slender's hip
It was my hip
flexors.
flexor. It
It was
gave.
his hip flexor. So
I've
it
been
gave.
And then I realized something else about civilians. You guys are like really under medicated. Like we went and bought ibuprofen, right? And it's 100
It's not.
milligram caplet, and they're
You're
like,
used to the 800s, aren't you?
yes. And I'm looking at this 100 milligram caplet, and I'm reading the directions on the bottle, and it's like, take 1. If pain persists, take 2. And I'm like, that's 200 milligrams. That's literally 25% of one caplet that I would take when I was in the
Slugger's like,
military.
I'm going to take 7 of these at once.
And then it's like, don't take more than 6 in a 24-hour period. And I'm like, that's still less than the one caplet I took every couple of hours while I was in the military.
Hey, Bobby, he says Barbie is a bait and switch. So does that mean Ken's taking over? We'll have some things to say coming up about that because Barbie is definitely a bait and switch. So
Dude, I mean, if it was truly a bait and switch, yes, Ken would take over, and he'd be keeping his pimp hand strong. He'd be the head of the household. Barbie would be like, I'm going to the store, and he'd be like, not right now, you're not. I can't go to the gym. And then she's like, I can't do this with you. And he's like, watch it. Fucking watch it.
So what you're saying is if anybody's seen The Other Guys, Ken would basically be when Will Ferrell had the flashback to being Gator.
Or he might be Steven Crowder.
That was yeah. What? Why are you not picking up the dog after the dog? What? Or no, was the dog?
Put on some gloves.
Put on some gloves. What? Don't you love me? It's like, whoa, Steve. But he was getting divorced. I give people a little bit of leeway when they're in the middle of divorces on both sides.
Yeah, I make fun of him because I like him. I mean, I am a fan. I watch the show still, so
I have known friends, male and female, when they're going through divorce, and they say some of the most hurtful,
they get
spiteful
real
things that I think any person's ever said in their life. So I don't try to judge them. Yeah,
hey, this bitch better be wearing jimmies.
Yeah, nobody messes with Gators women. I was just providing a service. What was it? That Mark Wahlberg said, "No, you had a stable of whores."
Oh,
that movie's underrated. Underrated, that movie. Underrated. But I'll tell you what. I guess we can jump right into the Barbie stuff because I think that's.
Do you know about it? Because I know nothing about it. I know you wanted me to go watch it this weekend or this week, and I was like, no. Even if I wasn't in pain, I wouldn't go watch this.
Well, I thought the last time we watched a movie that we really hated, we got so many shorts out of it. We got all sorts of content out of it. That was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There was shorts galore coming out of that
but
podcast
at what
episode.
cost?
What cost to yourself? Yeah. So Barbie is making bank. It's projecting now based on Friday's earnings to make over $150 million. Now, I do think I don't know where to go with this because I know Barbie is doing really well, but I also, from having worked at the theater for so many years, movies that appeal primarily to the female demographic usually open really strong. Their Friday numbers are really a lot higher than most blockbuster movies. The movie that
You think
comes
it's going to have a really big fall off in week
well,
2?
no, I mean I think that the projections for the opening weekend might go down.
Oh, okay.
So, and the reason I say that is from my experience with Sex in the City.
Right,
That
right.
movie, like from the Friday numbers, was projecting to open really crazy, and then it by Saturday and Sunday it dropped a lot. Barbie's a little different because it appeals to a more family. I mean, in theory, because we'll talk about why maybe that's not a great, not what's actually happening in the movie. But it's supposed to appeal to a whole family, so they might have better Saturday and Sunday numbers. But it was a well-known thing when you worked in the theater business that if it was a movie that was designed to appeal primarily to the female demographic, your Friday numbers would be your strongest, and then it would tail off Saturday and Sunday. That happened with 50 Shades of Grey. It happened with Sex in the City. It was just it's a I don't know what it is specifically to that demographic that makes them more interested in coming out Friday nights. I could venture a guess that maybe it's because it's the women who are less inclined to have other stuff going on. But I don't know exactly, but that was a thing that was pretty common knowledge. So, in fact, this Deadline article, for as happy-go-lucky as they are, they actually mentioned specifically the experience I have, which is it's remember female skewing movies are very front loaded. They brought up Twilight as the example, but that's another one.
Ugh,
And Tina's
Twilight.
over here saying that she hopes to convince Mr. Bojan we need to see the Barbie movie tomorrow afternoon. We saw Oppenheimer yesterday. I think Oppenheimer is going to end up being the better film, but even that, I'm
I think
interested to hear what
neither
Tina
of
has.
these matters. Like,
Yeah.
I think Oppenheimer will end up being the better film, but I'm not interested. Like, I don't go in for those really dramatic, artsy movies. And Oppenheimer, while it looks like it's going to be good, doesn't look like it's going to be something I care to see. If that makes sense.
So, and look at this. So, there's something interesting about that projection, right? It's saying it's projecting $150 million, which includes, the Thursday previews and Friday, making 70 million. That means for Saturday and Sunday, they only expect it to make 80 million. So it's
Oh,
going to
well, the
make half.
article literally says verbatim what you said.
Yeah.
Female skewing movies are very front loaded.
Yep.
Remember a movie called Twilight? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what my experience was. Now I'm trying to remember if I was there for the first Twilight. By that time I had been moved to a movie theater that was so dead it was Springfield Mall. I don't know if you've never been there because it got tore down by the time you were probably living in this area. Our average attendance, Slender, for a day was like 12 total people
Yeah,
on a
that's not going to
weekday.
make money.
No, we had 10 screens. So we were averaging like barely over one person
So
per screen
most
per
people
day.
got their own screen. That's
Exactly.
Man,
It
I wish
was
more movie theaters would do that instead of having like 200 seats in a theater. It's like we've got 2 seats in this theater.
well, I'm going to tell you that you probably wouldn't have been a fan of the theaters we had. These were built in like 1982. One of them even had a mono speaker, like
Oh,
because that's what was there then. And people would come out and complain, and they'd constantly come out and be like, "It sounds like it's only coming out of one speaker." And I would be like, "Yes, because it's mono. It's
that is
mono
because
sound."
there is only one speaker. Congratulations.
All right, let's see. And I got to say, Oppenheimer was a typical Nolan movie. I need to rewatch it on streaming with captions on for all the scenes I couldn't hear. Christopher Nolan has the worst sound mixing. I don't get it's a famous story now at this point that Dark Knight Rises, Warner Brothers made them go back and actually re-record Tom Hardy's dialogue because no one could hear what he was saying when he was playing Bane. the way Christopher Nolan had mixed it originally. And he does that. I think Tenet was probably the worst sound mixing of his stuff.
I mean,
Dun-
I haven't
Dunkirk
watched a
was pretty
lot
good.
of Christopher Nolan movies. Memento, Insomnia, the Batman trilogy, obviously. I watched some of Inception, but that was one of those ones like I caught bits and pieces of it in the galley during lunch when I was on a ship. I thought The Prestige was okay. Like all of his movies are okay.
Prestige was actually I really love The Prestige. I think that one's a great one.
I liked it. I wouldn't say I thought it was great. The only thing I think Christopher Nolan has done that on this list that I would put as great, because I'm looking at his list of movies right now, is the Dark Knight movies. Like, I think Memento is a little overrated. I don't think it's as good as a lot of people say it is. I think
Did you ever
Inception
watch the
is also a
chronological
little
cut?
overrated. The chronological
Yeah.
what?
So Memento, there's like a secret menu, or at least in the original DVD release of Memento, if you did like, and you could find it online, like a secret menu options, and it would do the movie in chronological order instead of reverse, where you would see it in the actual order, start to
In
finish.
the order that shit actually
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, the linear order.
Mhm.
It was. I'll be honest, it was not as good a movie when it doesn't have that gimmick.
Yeah.
I mean, the performer. I actually think Guy Pearce did a great job as an actor in that, and Joe Pantoliano, he was really good. I've never been as big a fan of who was Trinity. What's her name? I'm going blank on her name. Figures. Do you remember what the actress who played Trinity's name was?
No. If you can't remember, why the hell do you think I'd remember it? You're the guy who remembers these things.
Carrie Ann Moss. Yeah, there we go. That's because she's been completely forgettable otherwise. So, yeah. I mean, Christopher Nolan. I liked Interstellar. I'm not one of the people who thinks it's like the greatest movie of all time. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Well, no, and that's I mean, I think Christopher Nolan is overrated. I think he is a competent director or whatever, but he makes good movies, but like I'm looking at his list of movies and I'm like, other than the Dark Knight movies, I don't think any of them is great. I think some of them are good and some of them are passable. I don't see any that I would just out and out say are failures, except Tenet, because I don't even know what the hell that is. But then again, 2020, who was paying attention to movies in 2020, right?
What I'll say about Nolan is I think he gets a better reputation because he still does things practically.
Yeah.
And so his movies have a more cinematic feel than a lot of stuff. So even his average, some of his movies that might be average, because he does so much practical effects, feel better than they might otherwise. Because I think and this is something most directors need to maybe think about nowadays. If you do stuff with practical effects, you're going to get a better result from mentally, I think, from a lot of your audience. They're just going to buy your movie as more legitimate.
Well, and you might be able to avoid that $250 million price tag for the creation of said movie.
Yeah, so this Oppenheimer movie apparently only had like $100 million budget, which like, that's a lot of money, but for modern Hollywood, as we've talked the last few weeks, that's actually fairly reasonable for what it is. And with the fact that it's going to be opening to a $75 million, hopefully opening based on this estimate, it's going to be well on its way to making money, because worldwide
Well
it
on
might.
its way, but I mean,
Well,
what's
that's
the
just
rule of thumb?
domestic.
If it's
It
$100
takes
million movie, it
it
needs to
needs
make
200.
200 just to
Yep.
break even.
But this is just domestic. So if it makes 75 million opening weekend just domestically, you're probably going to be safely at 200 million worldwide.
Okay. I mean, so it will not be a flop.
It shouldn't be a flop. Well, is it?
What am I saying? It's not a Disney movie.
True. I don't know how much money it will make, but I do think that it's safely avoiding a flop terrible. Like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is in a really big danger zone. It needs a lot of money internationally to make up because it almost cost $300 million itself. So it
Oh, so
needs
they still haven't determined whether or not it's going to be a success per se.
so it only had a 54% drop, but it's gonna make 25 million this weekend. It's a that one is a Mission Impossible usually makes most of its money, like 70% of its box office, international. So it remains to be seen if that one is going to be good to go or not. Because it's
It's
not the
kind of
domestic that
crazy
makes
though,
it.
because like the critics gave it a 96%, the audience gives it a 94%, and it's still struggling.
I think it had bad timing. Sound of Freedom, which is now running over $120 million in revenue.
Well, Sound of Freedom is a cultural phenomenon at this point. It's
But
not
I
just
do
a
think
movie.
oh, I know, but I also think there is a decent amount of people who would have been in the Mission Impossible wheelhouse that have chosen instead to be part of the Sound of Freedom phenomenon. Going to the movies
Yeah.
isn't cheap,
No.
so I think when especially within a couple weeks, if you're deciding one or the other, there's a lot of people who may have gone to Mission Impossible that have instead decided to go to Sound of Freedom.
Or decided just not to go see a movie.
Yeah,
Like, and
that
and
too.
this is a thing, right? Like when the economy starts to get the way it is, and it's been that way. I've said this before. Luxuries are the first thing to go, and you are out of your fucking mind if you think that movies in a theater aren't a luxury. I can spend $20, buy it on like Amazon Prime or any of the other services, have it forever, watch it 1,000 times, and that cost me $20. If I go to a theater, even when me and you go to the theater, like what? It's probably just $20 for the food because I usually get my mozzarella sticks and my chicken tenders and my beer and like imagine and then if I bring one of my sons or we bring more people, like
Mhm.
I gotta pay for them too, and then suddenly like you're looking at a $40-$50 outing to see a movie one time and never again. So a lot of people are probably just like, man, I got a decent home theater, I'll just stream it, you know.
Yep. I mean, it's especially for like you said for a family, which is why I am wondering about, like I said, if Barbie's going to drop off once some of what we're going to talk about in a minute comes out about what this is actually going on in this movie. So I'm going to be so Tina, who is trying to convince Mr. Bojan to go see the Barbie movie tomorrow afternoon. I think we're going to probably start moving into some of the spoiler discussion. So if you are
Yeah, just before we go into
inclined,
that, I just looked it up, right? The
mhm,
average movie ticket cost is $11.75 in 2022, right? So we'll round up and we'll say $12. Now,
yep,
let's give a great example of movies that I really loved and would have loved to take my family to go see in the theater. Uh, let's say Despicable Me. Everybody in my house loved Despicable Me. Everybody in my house loved Despicable Me 2. Everybody in my house thought Despicable Me 3 was okay. Like we all liked that too, right? But
mhm.
in order for me to take myself, my wife, my 3 daughters, my 2 sons, all to go see Despicable Me at $12 a head, that's like $100 almost just for tickets. That's not even counting concessions.
Yep. And so yeah, Bobby, they did cancel that was going to be done at Netflix. So Bobby had heard that they're canceling the live action He-Man movie. And that was because the people making it for Netflix came back and said they needed a $200 million budget, and Netflix guffawed and spit out did a spit take and said no. We're not giving you $200 million to make a He-Man movie. And that, I think, very reasonably, Netflix said the most we can give you is $150 million, which, oh my God, $150 million should be more than enough to make a friggin' He-Man movie. And they came back and said, we need at least 175. And Netflix said, peace out. You can go find somebody else to make this movie then. So, which, by
Dude,
the way,
Netflix, I'll do it for 50 million.
that would still be more than the budget of the original Masters of the Universe from the 80s. And
No
that movie
shit,
is
right?
pretty good, right? I still
And
like
I mean,
that movie.
what do you really need for a He-Man movie? You just need somebody who's ripped and a loincloth. I can go make a loincloth for free. Like,
yeah, there's I think I was watching Mr. H reviews and he was like, you just have a jacked guy running around a desert scene with a sword and you could make that movie. What do you need $150 million?
yeah,
And Tina's
Tina
gonna stick
said,
around. She doesn't mind
yeah,
spoilers.
I don't mind about spoilers, so I'm going to spoil the whole thing right now. As it turns out, Barbie is not a real girl, and every time she lies, her hips get wider.
All right. And then Tina also says it costs the two of us between $45 to $60 per movie, plus popcorn, depending on the time of day. Oh my God, that's right. She's in Chicago though. That is a ridiculous rate. I know where we're at. The movie ticket is about $10.
I don't know how you could even bring yourself to go into a theater in the Chicagoland area.
Well, I mean, I'm sure she wears a flak jacket. Maybe, hopefully, Mr. Bojan is also
hopefully a
body
flak
armor.
jacket and a hazmat suit, because ugh. Those are not clean theaters.
No. All right, so I think let's go ahead and switch to I think the appropriate image here for our conversation. All right. So I'm going to do a Well, there you go. That's the right way to do it. Armed in theaters pretty clean. Good call.
They are fluorescent.
Yes.
That makes the 80s blush, man.
That was definitely like early 90s. Do you remember Saved by the Bell? That's something that
Dude,
Zach
I
and Kelly
remember
would have been
Saved
wearing.
by the Bell, but even Zach and Kelly would be like, that's a little loud.
Exactly. So, Bobby says just have Frank Langella replies his role as Skeletor. Yeah. I loved Langella's Skeletor. Straight honesty right here. Keeping it real. I think his Skeletor from Master of the Universe, a lot of people like he's overacting. I like that for Skeletor when he's like, do you hear that, He-Man? It's and the makeup was actually, I thought, pretty good for at the time. So
well, yeah, I
wouldn't
mean,
mind that.
Skeletor was supposed to be a comically evil bad guy. Like,
Yep.
I don't want to be good. I want to be evil.
Yeah. Well, that's a good Skeletor voice. There you go. Dina with Dayglow Barbie. Yeah. So I'm going to give you the brief synopsis of the Barbie movie so that we can talk about how it's a bit from
Did
the
you
ads.
actually watch this?
No, but I've seen enough content to know the plot of the movie.
Okay, good. Then I don't have to demand you hand in your man card, because wow.
No, and if I'm going to watch it, it's going to be on Movie Pass Tuesdays where I only need to use 7 credits. Which by the way,
you better at least bring your lady with you, because otherwise you have no excuse.
No, it would be with my wife, and just so you can remember, I only pay $10 a month for the Movie Pass. I get 34 credits a month, so 7 credits represents let's see, 10 divided by 34 times 7. It would mean I'm only paying $2.06 to go see the movie, so which is about what the right cost is for me.
Anyway. If you put a minus sign in front of it, yeah, they should probably pay you to watch a movie like this.
All right, so Reader's Digest version. Margot Robbie is what they call stereotypical Barbie. So in Barbie Land, which is where they all live, there's President Barbie, Dr. Barbie, XYZ Barbie, right? She's considered stereotypical Barbie, which I guess is generic blonde hair doll Barbie. So everything in Barbie Land is perfect. It's all run by the different Barbies doing the different jobs: Barbie construction workers, Barbie Supreme Court, Barbie president. You get it. The Kens only exist as Barbie support and cheer squad effectively. They have no jobs, they have no homes. They only live to get attention and affection from a Barbie. That's the whole point of their existence. Stereotypical Barbie Margot Robbie is, having a good old time, but then
Dude,
starts to
somebody is letting the mask slip with this script.
yeah. So
Somebody is professing how they want the world to be.
oh no, it becomes clear this we're gonna make it gets clearer. All right. So stereotypical Barbie starts to have breaks with Barbie Land because she starts questioning reality, starts making comments about death that was in the trailers. She's having existential crisis, and because of this, things stop working. She can't float down from the top of the dream house to her car, all this other. So she goes to see Screwed Up Barbie. That's which is Kate McKinnon from Saturday Night Live. You've seen her in the trailer. She's the one that looks like the Barbie doll where a kid has cut the hair off and drawn on it. And Screwed Up Barbie is telling her that somewhere in the real world, whichever kid is playing with her stereotypical Barbie is angsty and is therefore causing her to question reality. So she needs to go to the real world to fix whatever is bothering the child playing with the doll so that she can be fixed in Barbie world. So
Wait. So this was a live action movie that should have been a Toy Story spinoff made by Pixar?
effectively, yeah. So, all right. So she decides to go to the real world to fix the problem. Stereotypical Ken, played by Ryan Gosling, tags along with her. They go to the real world and and then Barbie starts having all sorts of problems in the real world. Ken is seeing that in this world, because this is the way they do this in this movie, because it is not the way it works in the real world that we live in.
Oh,
Everything
wait. Ken, when he comes with her to the real world, he
sees that
finally
men,
observes the patriarchy and is like, I
yes.
like the look of
No,
this.
oh no, it's not even observing it. He is freaking explicitly told the term patriarchy and what it is.
Of course.
And Ken decides he's going to bring the patriarchy back to Barbie Land.
It would make Barbie Land a better place. It really would.
So Barbie, stereotypical Barbie, finds out that the problem isn't the little girl playing with the doll. It's because America Ferrera, who works at Mattel, who's a mother, is having an existential crisis, and the doll was hers from when she was a kid, so that's where it's bleeding over. Ken, meanwhile, goes back to Barbie Land and brings the patriarchy with him, and he convinces all the other Kens to take over, and magically
Wait. What you're saying is Ken goes back and fixes Barbie Land.
what's great is magically they are apparently able to brainwash all the Barbies of Barbie world to be now down with the patriarchy, where they let the Kens run everything. And so when Barbie comes back with America Ferrera, because she wanted her to see Barbie Land where girls run everything, and that she's because America Ferrera was put down by the world where she couldn't get ahead because she was a woman. So Barbie's like, oh, let me show you Barbie Land, because in Barbie Land, everything's great because women run everything. And when they get back, it's terrible because the men are running everything and all the Barbies are just brainwashed, subservient, like get drinks for Ken, only do things for Ken. And you can
Yeah. At
and
first, I
here's
was finding this hilarious, but now it's starting to piss me off.
so the Kens are going to codify the laws of the patriarchy. So apparently, the Barbie Land is still like I guess a democracy where they have to pass laws. And so they're going to pass some permanent laws to make the patriarchy the official rules of Barbie Land. and somehow America Ferrera gives a man-hating, hateful feminist speech of some sort. Again, I haven't seen it, so I'm going by everyone else explaining it, which
We're
wakes
going
up
by rote.
it wakes up the Barbies who had been brainwashed just because she exposes how terrible the patriarchy actually is. And so the Barbies decide they need to keep the Kens from being able to vote on these laws. So what the Barbies do, this is the magic scheme they come up with, Slender, is they decide to manipulate the Kens by convincing two or more Kens at a time that they were competing for the attention of the Barbies, and the Barbies liked the other ones better. Or basically being, women who start fights between men. And the men get so distracted and fighting with each other that they don't go to vote on the day that the laws are getting voted on. So the Barbies go and vote, and they put it back to the matriarchy that it was before. The Kens go back to being second class citizens just like it was before. And instead of learning the lesson that is pretty clear from the, what this is exposing, which is it's not good to have either sex, male or female, completely shut out of, the ability to influence anything. The movie is completely okay with the Kens being put back to being homeless simps who have no power and authority in Barbie land. And stereotypical Barbie at the end decides that she doesn't need Ken at all, and that what she really needs is to be a genuine woman, leave to the real world, and go break the patriarchy there. The end.
It's
Did
worse
you,
than I thought.
yeah. So the trailers told you that this was going to be a fun, silly movie for the whole family where you could just have fun with a silly Barbie movie with Margot Robbie looking like what a real Barbie would probably look like. And they just completely, and this should have been obvious once they cast Greta Gerwig. I mean, not cast, but got her to be the director. This is what she was going to do. And by the way, Slender, if you're not already excited, do you know what her next project's going to be?
No.
Greta Gerwig is
What's
doing the Chronicles of Narnia for Netflix.
It's a good thing I don't give a shit about Narnia.
I mean, it's a pretty big Christian
She gonna
story.
ruin it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
She gonna ruin it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Narnia was just never one of those ones that got its hooks in me. I've read the books and I was just like, okay. There's this wardrobe in this fucking attic, and they step into it and they go into another world. That's a stupid premise. You know what would have made more sense is if there was like a secret room in the bathroom that took you into a cabin in another world.
Look, we all know how you get sent to the other world, and that's by Truck-kun running you over when you're saving somebody, and then you get taken to the other world. That's how
Just
you
so
do it.
long as you die. Like, it doesn't
Wait a
necessarily have
second.
to be Truck-kun. Like, what was it? Ray Liotta? Like, she fell off a building.
Wait, does
Somebody
that
pushed her.
mean hold on, does that mean Chronicles of Narnia is an isekai?
It's basically an isekai, yes.
Oh my
Like,
god.
if you think
That
about it, like I got a cheat skill in another world. Like, he finds a secret door in a secret room behind his bathroom, and then he
that is
walks into another world, and that's an isekai.
that is 100%. Oh my gosh. It is. I never realized that The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was an isekai
It is
story.
the original isekai.
Wow. That's I'm gonna have to bring that up now in conversation to make myself look smarter. All right, that's cool. But so when you saw the trailer for Barbie, right?
Yeah, it
It,
looked like it was just going to be a goofy Barbie movie.
yeah,
Like, I did
you
not
like
realize it was going to be a goofy Barbie movie that was secretly trying to indoctrinate my daughters into
hating men,
man-hating, patriarchy smashing psychos.
and that's where I think that in the long term legs of this movie are going to be undercut. You can make a good amount of money up front, but to have legs, to have people keep coming back, to go from making $200 million to making $500 million, I'm talking domestically. which is what like Top Gun Maverick did. That was a movie everybody and their mother loved. Nobody had a problem with Top Gun Maverick. It made like $600 million just in the United States and like 1.6 billion worldwide. This movie's not going to do that with this kind of message, because after opening weekend, once everything comes out about what is actually going on in this movie, I'm not saying that all the 50% of the country that's maybe conservative leaning is going to avoid the movie, but enough of them will that it's not going to be a giant gangbusters hit. Like, to me, a
Dude,
giant
my thing
gangbusters hit is like 400 plus domestic, earnings.
But my thing is, why can't you just tell a balanced fucking story these days?
Well, they had
Like,
it right there. Like from what I described, let me tell you, if they had gone the other direction and at the end decided, they stopped and said, "Hey, Kens, what we were doing was actually wrong. You guys deserve to have just as much say in the world, in the Barbie land, as we do. You're important too." Right there, who's going to argue
yeah,
with that?
where's the diversity, equity, and inclusion in this? Like,
Yeah, they
I
don't,
feel
not for
like,
the Kens.
why is 100% of our government women? I feel like we need more men representing things in government. No, no. And that's the fucking thing. You play the victim until you are the oppressor, and then you act like there are no fucking oppressors. Fuck you.
Yep. So that's why when we're gonna talk about legs, I'm intrigued. If it does make like 150 million this first weekend, I'm gonna be really interested to see what kind
Dude,
of
I hope
drop
it
off it
doesn't.
has.
I didn't even know. I came in blind because I knew you were going to tell me about it. So I didn't even know. But now that you've told me the basic beats of this story, I want it to fail. I want it to fucking fail hard. I want anyone who willfully jumped on board and helped out with this project to go bankrupt and live their rest of their fucking lives in poverty and never work in Hollywood or any other creation area ever again, because that is disgusting. It is fucking disgusting. Oh, men shouldn't be in charge of anything? I thought the whole point was equal representation. Oh, no. It's equal representation until we get 50%. And then we leverage that 50% to take 100%. Fuck off.
So I saw someone actually counted, and they said that they, in watching the movie, there was at least 10 times the word patriarchy was actually used. So that if you were taking shots anytime they said patriarchy, you would actually have been just hammered. That's
I
why I
hate it.
think
It makes me angry. It didn't make me angry until you told me more, and now I'm angry. I'm livid.
And yeah, so, and what's interesting is, the idea that they go to real world and that all Barbie sees is just men in charge of everything everywhere. I mean, they're apparently they
Did
come
she
out
not
of,
get a good look at our diverse, beautiful, and brave vice president of the United States of America?
well, they come out of the
Well, what
Barbie
the hell?
land. The exit from Barbie world is apparently Venice Beach in California. So
So,
they
in all
leave.
honesty, she should have come out and seen not a man with balls anywhere, because they don't exist. Not in California.
The other thing is, they don't, one of the people who plays Dr. Barbie is actually a trans actor.
Yay.
So there, I mean,
That makes sense.
this whole point of like this whole movie is about, like, the matriarchy and taking the matriarchy to the next level, and they're still casting the Dr. Barbie as a dude. So, I
Well,
mean,
that's because, as we have learned over the last couple of years, men are better at being women than women are. Like, when men decide to be women, we're the best women. We're woman of the year, in fact.
well, I know that we disproportionately perform well in athletics once we decide to do
We
that.
disproportionately perform well in athletics, Miss Universe contest, Woman of the Year. Like, we're better at being women than women are. Let's be honest. Because like men know what makes a good woman. So we're just better at it. We're better at everything. That's why we should be in charge of everything. I think we should launch a military operation against Barbie Land so that we can put things back to rights in there. Get the patriarchy installed again. All of this is sarcasm and satire before anyone says that I'm a huge sexist or anything else.
Well, I mean, I think we just said that the lesson that they should have done with this, and that could have been universally applied, is actually you could use the matriarchy as it existed in Barbie Land as a commentary and way to attack the idea that men and women aren't equal. Like, use that to, the lesson should have been the Ken should have had a seat at the table just as much as the Barbies. They're both equal individuals, and that they need to find a way to live together equally, right? That's the lesson. Who's gonna, again,
I mean,
who could
I'd
argue with
feel a
that?
lot more comfortable living in Barbie Land if Ken was at least the one doing the construction. Seriously.
Yeah, that actually, Bobby's got a good point. Jenner didn't help the women driving stereotype.
Well, he
Yes.
also didn't technically help the women are less likely to commit murder stereotype, but
At least, yeah. So, well, that was a good point, Bobby. Good point. Because, I mean, maybe that was the estrogen taking its toll. And I really want that. I'm worried now that there's going to be enough people who got taken in by the advertising.
dude, having known nothing about this movie and figuring this movie was not for me anyway and not giving two shits, I didn't care. But now that you've told me the story, like, I actively want it to fail.
But here's the thing, like,
Like, I
having
hate it.
seen the ads, you've got daughters. If they had said we're going to the movies to see Barbie, you probably been like, okay,
Yeah, sure,
it
whatever.
it
Cool.
looks like it's a silly, goofy
It's
Barbie
like,
movie.
okay, have fun. Like,
Yeah, have fun with you and your friends. Go watch Barbie. Like, whatever.
yeah.
And then they'd be getting like, and this
And then
isn't
when she
even
comes home and
subtle.
starts yelling at me about the patriarchy, I'll be like, you shut your damn mouth and do the dishes. No, not because you're a woman, because you're the daughter and you do the dishes, just like all the other kids. Your mother cooked dinner. That means you do the dishes. Unless, of course, I cooked dinner, in which case you still do the dishes because you're the kid. Because I cook dinner a lot too.
Oh wow,
No,
we've almost convinced Tina
don't do
that
it. Please don't do it.
shouldn't waste
I
money
don't
on
want
this
any
one.
money to go to it. And Tina, you're better than that. You're better than that. You deserve better than that.
I mean, if Sound of Freedom is playing in one of those theaters, I would say go see that. Mission Impossible: Dead
Dude, I've been
Reckoning
seeing a
was
lot of
actually
weird
really
stuff
good.
about Sound of Freedom, though. Like, apparently, even theaters are trying not to play the movie.
Okay, I can explain to you 100% of why that's happening, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just that people are sharing stories
Dude, no,
en
please.
masse.
I want you to explain this
All right.
in detail
This
because I
so
busted
yeah.
out the tinfoil hat for this one.
No, it's because all right. So I worked at AMC for a decade. I did, and for when I was there, this happened a lot with the Tyler Perry movies. And this was because Tyler Perry was an independent filmmaker at the time, meaning he didn't have a major distributor. He would actually, like the Medea movies or Diary of Mad Black Woman, all that stuff. When he was putting movies out there, he was independently distributing them to the different theaters across the country. What I mean by that is it wasn't Disney, it wasn't Sony, it wasn't Warner Brothers, right? They didn't have that. So when you're working, if you're AMC theaters, say you're like I had, we were at a theater that had there's the one before that actually did good attendance, had 15 screens, and of those screens, 4 were the large screens, right? And then it got like there was varying sizes going down below that. but 4
See,
were the
this
actual
shows
like.
how out of touch I am with the movie scene. Like, I didn't even realize that there were different size screens in theater.
Yes, like
I figured it was either theater or IMAX, and those were
no.
your options.
So like so where I used to work that had like those screens, of those 4 really big ones, one has been converted to an IMAX, and one was converted to a Dolby Atmos theater. So you use those big screens that have the most seats to now be, those are now the premium format theaters. But getting back to the story, so when Tyler Perry movies would get booked, if it was summertime, because this happened when it was summertime, they would get booked for the smallest, crappiest theater that we had, because that was the one that was open. Because when the distributors that are large, like Disney and Fox at the
Because
time and
basically that
Sony,
was the one where you were like, well, we're not playing anything else on that screen, so
that was
fuck it.
because like so it's in the news a lot right now about how Tom Cruise was arguing about how all the IMAX theaters are now going to Oppenheimer, and he wanted Mission Impossible to still be in there. And that's because these distributors make deals to be on those screens for a certain number of weeks when they open. So when Sound of Freedom right now is getting into these theaters, they're not getting into the nice theaters. They're getting booked into the theaters that are available because it's summertime. And so right now there's Mission Impossible's out, Barbie's coming out, Oppenheimer's coming out. Like the movie theaters have to already make those spaces available for these big ones by contract they signed last year when these movies were getting officially scheduled. So here's what's happening. Movie theaters are not a high margin business. You don't make a ton of money. What you do in the movie theaters when you're not a high margin business is you skimp on maintenance. You don't do the required preventative maintenance. You don't fix things when you have to if you don't need to. So for like my story that I'm getting back to is when the Tyler Perry movies would come out and we were putting them in those crappy theaters because that's what they were getting booked into. Guess which theaters weren't getting their air conditioning units serviced on the regular? So it's summertime in Virginia. The air conditioning units are now, we're in sellout theaters. Body heat is, for a sellout theater, generates a lot of
Dude,
heat
if you
in
don't have
that
an air
space.
conditioner in a theater room, that theater room is going to be 98 degrees by 30 minutes into the movie.
And you are 100% correct. So we would put signs up to let people know. And people would think that it was a racist conspiracy, and that's what they were yelling about then. It was like, no, this is the theater it got booked in. It's got the air conditioners broke. Would you rather we don't show the movie because we don't have any other screens, right? So what's happening to Sound of Freedom is like, especially because I can speak to AMC, when it's getting booked into these theaters, it's being put into the theaters that have the least maintenance being done on them. And so when you've got thousands of screens across the country and you're putting them in disproportionately the theaters that have the least maintenance done,
Yeah, they're booked into the shittiest room, basically.
you're gonna then people, and these are, and remember, now the people going to see this movie are hyper aware,
Yeah.
and so they're looking for things that are broken. I guarantee you, if I walked into the nicest, biggest theater AMC has, I could point out to you 7 or 8 things that are broken and not working the way they're supposed to. But you kind of look past it because you're just watching the movie, right? So the sound system, I've been in the big
Yeah, I mean, if
theaters
I'm
where the
just
sound
there to
system
see a
doesn't work.
movie,
Yeah.
like, I don't
So
care.
you
As long
add
as you
a
bring
hype.
me as long as you bring me my tall boy full of Yingling, my mozzarella sticks, and my chicken tenders, I don't give a shit about much else.
Well, then also you're talking about the Alamo Drafthouse, which actually does spend a little bit more on their maintenance because they don't run a giant chain, and they make a lot more of their money on because they sell full restaurant type stuff, so they have better margins. So they do spend a little bit more on upkeep.
Yeah, they could spend a little bit more on some peanut oil for that for those chicken tenders though, because their chicken tenders are a little meh. Mozza
Yeah.
sticks, perfect, on point. Yingling, delicious. Chicken tenders, I've had better.
Yeah. So
We're not talking KFC here.
exactly. So I can speak from firsthand frontline experience that this happens to any movie that's independent that ends up getting a big hit following. You're going to be in those bad theaters because the independent distributors have no clout and can't get you moved into the nice ones. So you're going to have bad stuff happen because they're not maintained very well. So that's where your
Okay,
sound system will
well,
go out, where it'll be
that makes
leaky
a lot more
roofs.
sense actually, and because I was so confused, like I was, like I said, I was busting out my tinfoil hat because it seemed weird, but that
So I
actually
can,
explains
yeah,
a lot.
no, and this was arguments that as a theater level manager, we would be on the phone with the distributor at the home office, the guy who works in distribution at the home office for AMC, um, to try to get him to let us move movies to the bigger, better theaters because they're selling tickets, right? We get our bonuses based on ticket sales, based on concession sales. So I don't give a rat's ass about what the distribution contract said. I want more people in those seats as a theater manager. And what's happening is the
And so you'd be
distribution.
on the phone and you'd be like, "Hey, Sound of
Yep.
Freedom is selling a shitload of tickets. Can we put it on some of the nicer screens?" And they'd be like, "No, we have a
Nope.
contract."
Nope. No, exactly. They said we can't move it. And so then we would start doing weird things
And you're
where,
like, "So you're fucking up my bonus."
yeah. So what you'd end up doing is you'd look at like the contractual minimum number of showings that you had to have for like the movie in the big theater, and maybe you'd start it later if the independent movie skewed more towards kids, and you'd get a showing of it in the morning, or you'd stop it early so you could get later shows with the other movie, and you'd move it around to try to still skirt the contract. um yeah, so you're agreed. That's more believable than a left wing conspiracy, at least in this instance. It's just never ascribe to conspiracy what can be explained through ineptitude, right? Like it's if the easier explanation is that it's just lack of maintenance for the lowest end theaters, and that's where Sound of Freedom is. It's a lot less complicated than the idea that AMC would bother booking this movie that is selling tickets and then generating income for them and pissing off the audience who goes sees it. It doesn't make any sense. There's no ESG money in it for that. Like it doesn't work that way. I remember Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. I think I've mentioned it before. Was when in the opening weekend it was underperforming and it was in our biggest theater, and we had our GM on every day on the phone trying to get them to let us move it. And the reason why is because that movie was booked in that biggest theater for 3 weeks.
And so that biggest theater was empty for 3 weeks.
So we were selling like 10, 20 tickets in that big space when other places were selling out, and we're like, let us move this movie. Like you And that's what later on they started adding riders to the contract about performance. Like if the movie was not hitting certain minimum performance thresholds, like you could do it. But who was actually the king of like fucking theaters over on that was Disney. Disney didn't give a shit about those. They would hold you over the barrel, and you couldn't put any of those clauses in with Disney movies. They were getting the big theaters for 2-3 weeks at a time, no matter what. It was because they said what Disney did was they said if you want this movie and the next like two Disney releases, you have to agree to these terms for all three, or you're not getting any of them. And it was like, I guess
Yeah, I
fine, we
don't
need
think
the Disney
Disney's gonna
movies.
be able to negotiate like that very much longer.
No. It's funny because I've heard these same rumors about Sound of Freedom. I've even sent this information on background to a couple other people who do YouTube stuff because I was like, look, it doesn't help us to like try to do this, and here's exactly what's actually happening. It's not some conspiracy. It's just movie theaters are being cheap. And let me tell you, the pandemic was probably even worse because over that 18 to 20-month period, if you thought you had no money to maintain the back end theaters before, imagine if you
Yeah,
had
you
no
got you
movies
got
coming
a
out.
whole lot of no money now.
And look, and you've seen the box office stuff. We talked about it. Movie theaters still aren't coming out of it in a good space, right? We're
No, they're
they're
still
still
failing.
they're still, and it's because the product they're getting from studios is not great. So
Yeah.
again, if you're the movie theaters, you're kind of screwed because I can tell you right now, AMC would love to have Sound of Freedom in probably their top four, one of their top four theaters per location. Screen, I'll call them screens, top four screens per theater location.
Yeah.
But because of these distribution contracts with these large companies that were signed sometimes years ago, they have no room to move that Sound of Freedom to different theaters. Trust me, I guarantee you that AMC specifically loves the idea of Sound of Freedom making money because the independent theaters, here's why. When it's opening weekend for a movie like Barbie, the ticket split is actually higher to the film company than it is to the theater. The longer the movie plays, the closer it gets to 50-50. But it usually starts 60-40, where the movie studio gets 60% of the ticket and the theater gets 40%. And then it shifts to 50-50 over the course of the movie being out. When you get
Mhm.
those independent companies like Angels Studios, who's doing, um, Sound of Freedom, that thing I guarantee you is split 50-50 from day one. So AMC is making more money on a Sound of Freedom ticket than they are on a Barbie ticket. So they want more people that if it was
And
up to
yet,
AMC, but you can't get it because I'll tell you, Warner Brothers, Disney, they send people to check your theaters. They will
oh
actually
yeah, I'm
come and
sure
they
they've
will
got
spot check.
what
I
do they call those? The secret customers or whatever?
Oh, secret shoppers.
Secret
Oh no,
shoppers,
they
yeah.
it's not even it wasn't even secret shoppers. This was back when you still got physical ticket stubs and everything.
Mhm.
Disney would send friggin' auditors at the end of a night on a weekend, and they would count your ticket stubs to make sure that the
Ugh.
tickets sold being reported out of your theater matched the physical ticket stubs within a margin of error at the actual theater location.
Dude, you
And
should have
I
just put tag board up on the windows and told them they don't get to observe.
That's in the contract. They get to walk into the theaters. We had to
Yeah,
give them
well,
free
observing
sodas.
is in the Constitution, but we still don't necessarily have to let people do it, apparently.
I know, but it was a pain in
And that is
look, I was a
political as I will get tonight.
yeah, I was like an usher getting tasked with actually opening up the little box and separating out the entire just the Disney tickets on those weekends. It was a pain in the ass because our theater that I worked at was doing 8,000-9,000 people in attendance a day. It was not it was not an easy
And
thing to
then you got to
split
go
up those
find
out.
the 1,200 Disney tickets.
I mean, it would be like Bugs Life. You'd be just separating out all the Bugs Life stubs and, things like that. Luckily, they didn't own
Yeah, but if you've
Lucasfilm.
got like 4 to 6 showings of A Bug's Life that day,
Oh,
that's
yeah, I mean, if it was
that's
the number 1
1,200
movie
tickets, man.
yeah, if it was the number 1 movie, you're talking easily over, 1 to 2,000 people would be minimum opening weekend going to see that movie a day, and you'd
Yep.
be getting those stubs out, and it was it was a pain. And that's what happens, when we talk about breaking the, studio system and being able to independently produce movies, that is one of the big obstacles. Like, you think, "Oh, I can create," I can actually shoot a movie and I can make it look as good as a studio. That's just step 1. Then you've gotta
Mhm.
actually get it distributed, and sometimes the movie theaters are all on board with distributing your movie until the studios don't like that your movie is getting distributed and making money that they could make. And so they'll sometimes put up barriers, like, I can tell you, Disney was one of the was the company that sold the distribution rights for Sound of Freedom after sitting on it for all those years. You better believe that when they knew it was coming out and getting wider release, they were making some calls to maybe try to not get embarrassed by it, to make sure that it wasn't in as many theaters or a seat count so that it
And
couldn't
yet
sell the tickets.
they've been embarrassed by it.
They have, yeah. And that's one of the things. Sound of Freedom is a great story, but, so the conspiracy that theaters are against it is silly. Theaters love this. They make more money off of it than they do studios. The problem is this movie it's few and far between. We need to get better at supporting these kinds of movies more often. And also, Sound of Freedom was made with good production value. It looks like a Hollywood movie. It feels like a Hollywood movie. So it makes it easier to be a success.
Mhm.
Like, no offense to Kirk Cameron. I know he's doing great work with his children's books, but some of those what were they called? Left Behind movies he did in the late 90s, early O's. They looked low budget then. And so the idea of putting those in theaters and making money, you might be able to do a Fathom events where you make like a one night showing and make like across the whole country like $1 million, which sounds great, except it's not that much money, you know, across the whole country. What you need to do is Sound of Freedom is the way forward. You've got to do stuff that looks the part. We've got the technology to do it on a like Sound of Freedom's budget was 15 million. And so it's grossed now over 120. It's made oodles of money back. But if you do 15 to 20 million dollars, like like the conservative investors who are trying to change, like elect people, could get more bang for their buck financing a couple movies that actually looked like good produced movies. I mean, what is Sound of Freedom's $15 million? You could for 50, couple, $30 million, you get 2, 3 movies that could gross, and even if any one of them hits, you've covered the costs for all three,
Dude,
and
if
it's
you
going to
do
be a lot
profits
easier.
by percentage, like Sound of Freedom is probably far and away the most successful movie this year.
Oh yeah, by return on investment wise,
Yep.
it is.
The most successful. And I mean, love him or hate him, like Mel Gibson produces a damn good movie, doesn't he?
He's it's good. It's good that he's going to be that he's involved, and that he's Jim Caviezel super underrated. I've loved him since County Monte Cristo. I
Count of
thought that
Monte
movie is
Cristo was
great.
absolutely fucking amazing.
And there was someone I'd forget where, but someone was talking about why Jim Caviezel was really good, and they said it was because if you when he's just being like on when he's just on screen and being silent, when you look at his eyes, and this is why he was also really good for playing Jesus. There's just like this look of knowledge and a lifetime of suffering and pain that he's worked past, right? But he in his
Yeah,
eyes,
he
he
is able
projects.
to emote in a way that
Yeah.
a lot of young actors are not.
Yep. And let's see, Bobby says, I like him in the first Escape Plan movie. Yep. And which is in this case for Sound of Freedom, he's playing someone who has to deal with some of the most wretched things that happen on this planet. And you better
Oh
believe
yeah,
that
scum. Basically, he's
yeah,
dealing with the scummiest of the scum. Like he is dealing with the shit on the bottom of the boot of the scum that wears the boot that has shit on the bottom of it.
and you've got to feel bad like the people in law enforcement who work in that zone. I don't know how like you can see like they've got to have the 1,000 yard stare like where they've just when you see that stuff, it's got to burn you out. It's got to just destroy like think of the burden that would give you like seeing what's happening in the world to the innocent most innocent of victims and just like
You
not
gotta
being able yeah.
to be able to do it. It's very much similar to like a wartime mentality. You got to be able to flip a switch and just not feel emotions because if you see shit like that, I promise
Mhm.
you, those emotions will make you unable to function.
Which is why
Like
again I think
they will break you.
which is why I loved the casting choice of Jim Caviezel because in those quiet moments you can almost sense in his acting at least you can sense like the burden
Yeah,
that this
and
person's
that's the
carrying.
thing with stuff like that. Like, basically, when I say you got to flip a switch, that doesn't mean you never process. You just can't process in the moment. You have to process after. Like, have you ever been in one of those situations where, like, some shit popped off and you just reacted? And then after everything was done, you realized how bad it really was. And that's when you process the emotion from it.
Oh yeah, I think it's
Like,
normal.
that's kind of how you have to approach these kind of things.
And that's how humans are built so that we don't break, right? Because in the moment if we were all like laid out by just the emotions of that moment, like you couldn't ever do the right thing.
Yeah, you would be of no use to anyone. If you're in a combat situation and you process the emotions from that combat, then and there, well, guess what? You're dead. You have now been shot in the face and are dead. Process that shit later.
Exactly. So I think, and I'm really happy Sound of Freedom is doing what it's doing. It's it is a phenomenon. I'm hoping that we'll get more like that because I remember one of our early podcast episodes, and we were talking to someone who did Christian comics, and one of the things I think both of us were talking about was like, you can't just think that because you're doing something that's Christian themed that it's going to sell like production quality. Like, don't just half-ass it, right? Like you've got people have an expectation of what their entertainment should look like if it's legitimate, and you've got to speak to that level of quality. Otherwise, you're not ever going to make the dent you think you will. Say what you
No,
will
I,
about
I agree.
Tyler Perry, like when he made his initial money doing lower budget stuff, but once he had any kind of reasonable budget, and he built this all up on his own, he built his own studios to be able to shoot things so they looked like real movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's something like I very much respect out of that. Like he could have sat on his butt and just made Medea stuff that was low budget, and he could have got pretty wealthy off of that and not really had to care. But he believed in the bigger vision, and now he's done even like he went from being somebody who probably could have lived comfortably to being a mogul who bought BET for like cash. So that's what happens when you commit to actually doing quality with your creative work. So, Sound of Freedom, though, I think is the way forward. It shows you how you can do that. Now you've got because you're going to have to put a little bit more skin in the game. You can't make these $300,000 movies and expect to be able to make this kind of impact. But for 10, 15 million, you can get a couple probably really quality actors in there, actually make it look like a Hollywood production, and roll the dice and see if you can get a really good return on your investment.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Now, I think we can turn our attention to maybe something that's a little more fun, a little more lighthearted,
A
which
little more
is
quality, a little bit
a little
better,
more,
a little
a little
less
more.
agenda.
Yeah, I should say summer. I gotta be a little more specific because I just put anime. It's summer anime because anime has 4 seasons worth of content, and if you don't specify,
That's
you won't.
because in Japan they still got work ethic.
Yeah, they'll burn the hell out of their artists. Um, I would highlight the guy who did Berserk and who died
Well, don't get me
because
wrong. Don't get me wrong. They will burn the hell out of their artists, but guess what? No matter how burned out that artist becomes, he'll still keep putting out quality shit
this is true
because he will not dishonor the family.
till he dies.
Well, that's not
All right,
dishonoring the family. That is the greatest honor, right?
all right. So this is our 2023 summer anime lineup that we've got going on here. So we'll try to point out which one of these would be Crunchyroll, which would be High Dive, and if I know. I'm going to point out right off the bat, Mushoku Tensei 2, the second season for Jobless Reincarnation. I've been trying to get Slender to watch this forever. It
Yeah,
may
still ain't watched
arguably
that one. I
it could
I know it's on my
arguably
list.
be it could arguably be the best isekai ever made. There's some people who feel very strongly it is. Um, I think you would actually like it. It has a
I mean,
dub.
there's a lot of isekai out there.
No,
That's a,
this is
that's a
like
bold claim.
watch the first season. It's completely done and dubbed. I know, and that way it'll give you a few weeks for the second season to have its dub start dropping. I know Jujutsu Kaisen is very highly rated. It's a Mappa production. Studio
Yeah, my
Mappa
kids
is
like that one.
fantastic.
That was one of the ones I
Um,
think my daughter was trying to get me to watch. She was like, "You should watch Jujutsu Kaisen," and I'm like, "I don't have any interest whatsoever in Jujutsu Kaisen."
I'm intrigued by Bucket List of the Dead.
It
Have you heard of
sounds
that one?
intriguing. I haven't watched it.
But the concept for people who don't is that it's a zombie apocalypse, and that this overworked kind of shut-in person is actually genuinely happy about it because he had been working just like in Japan again, the work ethic, just endless time at a corporation, and now he actually gets to pursue his goals, like confessing his feelings, doing the things he's wanted to do. So the zombie apocalypse isn't a bad thing. It's actually a freeing
It made
experience.
his life so much better.
Yeah. So Bleach, God knows Bleach has been going on
Wait,
forever.
wait, what's
So
that one to the left?
Horia Horimiya, The Missing Pieces,
I think is that I think that's a follow
featuring
on.
stories from the manga not adapted in the main anime. So this is a like add-on to, it's like lost episodes.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really good anime. It's a romance. It's heartwarming. I really like that one. The Horimiya. It was good.
Now, do you like it as much as Masamune's Kun's Revenge?
Oh, I mean, I haven't seen enough of Masamune Kun's Revenge to make a call yet, but I am enjoying very thoroughly Masamune Kun's
I
Revenge.
believe Masamune's Kun's Revenge is he was a fat kid who got shunned by a little rich girl, and so he goes off,
Well, when he
becomes
was a little kid, he confessed his love for her. And and she said, "I could never be with someone like you. You're a pig's foot."
yeah. So he goes off and comes up with a giant scheme for revenge. That the first step is he becomes athletic, buff, and hot. Uh, so
Yes.
and
And his
so
goal
he's
is to make her fall in love and confess her love for him
so he can
so that he
reject
can
her.
dump her.
Yeah, so there's a Chad story in there, right there. So um the all right, so this is another romance comedy, which is The Girl I Like Forgot Her Glasses.
Yeah, they're not
That
dubbing that one, so I haven't watched any of it yet, but I wanted to.
Yeah, that's another example of this girl is apparently completely like has is only was is it nearsighted when you can only see stuff like right up close.
Yeah, if
So
you're
when she
nearsighted, you can see things that are close to you. If you're farsighted, you can
Yep.
see things that are far away.
Yeah, so she when she forgets her glasses, she can't see anything that isn't like 2 inches from her face, and she constantly forgets her glasses, and it's just a fun, lighthearted kind of romance thing. This is misleading. It says The Eminence of Shadow season 2, but this was just because an episode had premiered at an anime convention. It's going to start in the fall, so just do that.
So
Uh,
next season.
Next season. All right, this one is on Netflix. My Happy Marriage. I haven't heard anything about this one,
Yeah, that's completely new. I've heard nothing. Absolutely
and
nothing.
I basically when it's a Netflix anime, because I don't have Netflix anymore, so I don't see it. Rent a Girlfriend season 3. I mean, Rent a
There's a
Girlfriend.
couple good ones on Netflix, like Romantic Killer, I think is one that's kind of okay. Like Netflix has got a couple decent animes going right now, but like they aren't the powerhouse they used to be. Their anime showing is been lacking of late.
Yeah, I would say that Crunchyroll is probably the number one for anime content in the US
Dude, you
domestically.
pair up Crunchyroll and High Dive, and you're pretty
And
much
you've got
set.
yeah, you got it. For instance, this one season 3 of Rent a Girlfriend, which is a big hit.
Rent a
It says
Girlfriend
season
is cute. It's like
Yeah.
it's a little grown up. There's definitely some grown up shit that happens in it.
Yeah, so like if you've
But
ever
it's fun.
interested in Pretty Woman where you buy a hooker and have the girlfriend experience, that's basically this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
yeah, Rent a Girlfriend. It says it right in the
Yeah, but
title.
instead of being a rich guy, it's some 20-year-old college student.
Which is, there's something to be said that they're showing what it's like to have like a simp, like who's just spending his entire savings.
Yeah.
on- so that's kind of funny. Uh, Bungo Stray Dogs fifth season. I haven't watched that one. So
Never got into it.
Liar Liar is a new one. That one sounds interesting.
Yeah. Never got
Uh,
it. Not interested.
that
Let's
oh,
move
you
on to the
haven't?
next one because the next one looks good.
Oh, we know why it's good. Devil is a Part Timer, season 2, part 2.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I mean,
It's gonna
I
be
mean,
great.
we spent a whole episode on why Devil is a Part Timer is a fantastic show. I
Yeah,
want to
but you
thank.
know why this particular core is gonna be great is because he's finally coming back to McRonald's.
Oh yeah,
This is
and
because if you remember in season 2 core 1, like there is no McRonald's going on. Like it's
well,
closed for refurbishing.
yeah, because now it's a MIG cafe.
Yeah.
And by the way, they nailed the design aesthetic of it's McDonald's instead of McDonald's, but it's chef's
Yes.
kiss perfect for like what that looks like. And just Mao's commitment to being the best barista and coffee vendor at a McDonald's is just amazing.
Yep. It's
Uh
still fantastic.
let's see, we've got Reign of the Seven Spellblades.
Eh.
That could be interesting.
Sounds generic, but you never
Yeah.
know.
Let's
Rurouni
see.
Kenshin, I can't believe they're still making Rurouni Kenshins.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing: Samurai X was amazing. Rurouni Kenshin was stupid, and I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that, but I didn't find it nearly as compelling as Samurai X.
All right, now this line's got some. We got some generic isekai trash that could be just good, which is, am I actually the strongest? Obviously, he's reincarnated into another world with the promise of cheap power, but he's left for dead by his family, who are royals, because they think he's underpowered and would embarrass them. So
Okay, that premise might work.
I mean, it's generic isekai entertainment. I've watched the first 3 episodes.
Okay.
And of course, apparently, as soon as he's abandoned in the wild, he manages to defeat a giant red red wolf demon that then takes on human form of a very well endowed maid to
Of
serve him.
course. Of
So
course.
you can see that highlighted in the picture in the background there. And then, of
Uh-huh.
course, he's got a syscon who is obsessed with him, and because that you wouldn't be and she's not actually related, remember, because he was abandoned by his reincarnated family, but it's not an
Okay, that
isekai.
next one is the one that looks more interesting to me.
Are you talking about the vending machine?
No, the
Oh, the
dreaming boy is
realist.
a realist.
Let's see, Wataru Soju is deeply in love with his beautiful classmate Akia Natsukawa, approaches her without getting discouraged while having dreams about their mutual love. However, one day he woke up thinking, I am not really fit to be together with someone as good as her. Well, I guess that is a realist approach. It is a comedy romance. Those are your two favorite categories put together.
I watched the first episode of Reborn as a vending machine, and I'm just like, we may have crossed the Rubicon here. Like, this may be too much.
It
Because
was
it's really dumb.
I I was shut my brain off aside from having to read the subs, and man, it is exactly. And then of course he's managed to find like a cute girl who just can carry around a vending machine on a backpack.
Like I said, like we may have reached our limit. Like we may have gone as far as we needed to with the vending machine thing. Because I can't suspend my disbelief enough to think anything other than this is fucking stupid.
All right, then we've got another generic, which is Classroom for Heroes. A long time
Yeah.
ago, there existed a demon lord who terrorized
Yeah, a
the
long time ago
world.
nobody cared. You're gonna really have to work to
Yeah,
catch my interest on that
yeah.
fucking
Until the hero
generic
defeated
ass
them,
storyline.
the hero created the academy to help heroes in training. I'm sure one of them is the reincarnation of the demon lord, of course.
Uh-huh. Dark
Um,
Gathering, okay.
And that one's a high dive. So let's see. A
Horror
college
supernatural.
freshman who hosts ghosts. Unluckily for him, he attracts spirits. Okay.
He hates ghosts
Then
and he attracts ghosts. Okay.
yeah. Then we go to the other end of the spectrum with My Tiny Senpai, which is basically
Dude,
if you took
after watching My Senpai is Annoying and loving it, I'll probably watch this one too.
well, this is basically they took Azuki-chan and made her about 7-8 inches shorter, but kept the other things the same, and
You mean
then made her
Uzuki-chan?
Azuki-chan. Yeah,
Uzuki-chan.
Uzuki-chan. All right, yeah. And instead of wanting to hang out, she's your boss now. Except she's tiny, but still got the other things the same.
Well, I mean, that's in Masamune Kun's Revenge too. His mother is like the smallest person in the house.
Yep.
And she's always trying to cook him junk food and he doesn't like it.
Because he's like, this all this is carbs and
It's
calories.
just empty calories. It's all empty calories.
So yeah, I think this is another one where I might wait till till the end of the season to watch them all at once, but probably I'll end up enjoying it. Oh, Undead Girl Murder Farce. That could be fantasy mystery. The end of the 19th centuries, a vampire's wife is murdered, and the detective known as the cage user is called to solve the crime, but there's more to the detective and the curtain bird cage he carries. I think this is one where the bird cage actually has a decapitated head of a monster that he works with. So I've actually thought I might give that one a
Okay,
chance.
that and I've heard good things about the Duke of Death and his maid.
I mean, if it got a second season, that's usually I mean,
It's
anime
usually
doesn't.
a decent sign.
Yeah, it had to at least have some kind of popularity.
Now,
Then we've
you
got
said
an
I should check out My Unique Skill Makes Me OP even at level 1.
yeah, because this one is a slice of life isekai kind of fantasy thing
I
where
mean, I do love a
he's
good slice of life.
because he's yeah, so this is in this world he gets reincarnated to people get stuff through drop. Their entire economic system is based on monster drops,
As it
meaning
should be.
like they start out in the first episode they kill a slime and they get bean sprouts, and then then you can take that and go trade for other things. So everybody is doing that. So he gets reincarnated and he's level 1, so he's weak, and all his stats suck except he has one OP stat, which is he has S tier for drops. So if he can manage to beat something and kill it, he gets like the rarest of rare drops. Like RN Jesus is rolling,
So
sixes
he
every
just needs
time
a
for him.
party that can kill stuff, and as long as he's there, the drops will be amazing.
Well, what he finds is that over time, of course, there's ways for he can take that drop to enhance his other skills because not to spoil anything, he finds zones where monsters are apparently that if you kill them, they never drop anything for the regular people, but for him, they drop basically stat boosters and skills. And so he can start, so
Okay,
he's going
okay.
to end up a super OP guy, but
Yeah. Your
yeah,
standard
but
power fantasy will play out.
I mean, look, we both enjoyed. I got a cheat skill in another world and became unrivaled in the real
I
world
mean, I'm
too.
still enjoying that. I hope it gets more seasons because I'm really liking that one.
I think the character designs, especially for the girls on that one, was excellent. The waifus of that show were fantastic.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't disagree.
yeah, I mean, you gotta. Was the one girl an elf or was she just like the
You talking
one
about
that
the
was
assassin?
the assassin?
I believe. Well, now I'm second guessing myself. I thought she was.
She had a definite elf vibe, right? A fantasy elf
She looked
kind of.
very elfy.
Yeah, I know that's your thing. So, hmm. Oh, this is the one I thought looked good too. Hulk.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I know nothing about it though.
All right, so this one, he's basically the human hero that defeated the Demon King, and now he's competing in the tournament to become the next Demon King. Because so I mean it's basically he's He-Man.
Oh, just looked it up. Not an elf. She's got normal ears. She just looks very elf-like with the way with her outfit and everything. That's surprising. Yeah,
Hmm.
they don't have any elves yet.
Didn't she have like a total elf vibe though?
Yeah, like I said, because I went and looked up the character you're talking about, the assassin, right? The one who uses the
Oh, wait.
strings.
You know what I'm thinking? Was it the have you seen the last episode?
I might not be caught up. I don't know if I've seen it yet.
With the female archer?
I don't think I've seen her yet.
Okay. We'll see when you get to that one. Oh, this one sounds right up your alley. The masterful cat is depressed again today. When Saku took in a stray black cat, she never expected that he would become the equivalent of a housekeeping life partner. But
Yes, this
Yukichi, a
sounds
giant cat
fantastic.
who towers over Saku, is not your ordinary feline. He takes great pride in his culinary skills, and a good sale at the supermarket gets that. That just that just says like Slender's going to be watching the crap out of that show.
It's quite possible, yes.
All right. Let's see.
We got a lot of good stuff coming down the pipe this time around.
The most satirical last boss queen from Villainous. All right, so this is another one of those villain to hero possible isekais.
There've been a lot of those lately.
I gotta say, I think we both talked about it a little before the episode, but how Relina ended up at the Duke's mansion was great.
Yeah, how Ray Liana ended up in the Duke's
Liana,
mansion.
if you want to watch an anime with like your wife or girlfriend, that one is a great choice.
It is pretty good. It's pretty good.
I would say
loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I know that we both agree that also on our wives both really liked watching Ancient Magus Bride.
Yeah, we're still pushing through season 2 of that one right now.
Yeah,
as well.
season 2 just recently dropped. So and that one has a dub, I think. So if you again for entry level anime, if you want to be able to watch some with your wife or girlfriend, if she's not into anime, because anime can be a little bit overwhelming. I would say how
anime sometimes comes with like huge tracts of land and sometimes your girlfriend might not like that.
And yeah, and sometimes the anime will make fun of people who don't have huge tracts of land. But
or it'll make fun of people who do. You never know.
You never know. Or they'll just have people coming up and grabbing those huge tracts of land for no reason. So but entry level good ones are, how Ray Liana ended up in the Duke's mansion, Ancient Magus Bride. I would say what's another like it's still got fan service, but I would think
a great entry level if like you talked about those
Spy
two.
Family.
We've got
Spy
an
Family is good.
Yes, Spy Family is good. I still think Ouran High School Host Club is absolutely amazing and a good entry level one.
Oh yeah. And it doesn't have like the fan service part is
no, it gets a little fan servicey later on, but like
but you're well acclimated to anime by the time that starts
coming. And like they are literally pointing out that these are tropes from anime.
Exactly. And there's nothing funnier in anime than a host, man. That's where you gotta go. Let's see. I think we've got a couple more isekais right here. The Great Cleric and Sweet Reincarnation. Like we've gotten to the point in isekai where we are specifying their profession. They're being specifically reincarnated for professions. Pharmacist.
Yeah, we got the pharmacist,
chef.
got the pastry chef, the world's greatest assassin, the farmer, the cooking skills guy, the what was it, like open fire cooking or whatever.
Yeah, my and campfire cooking, and that one was another good one I just watched and could have a good time watching.
But like I don't know, they put out so much content. I guess they have to, because if we're looking at the same row, Level 1 Demon Lord and 1-room hero. What?
That actually looks funny to me for some
It
reason.
looks entertaining.
Just the look of the angry little demon lord girl, it just makes me think that it'll be funny. Let's see. Oh, science fiction drama suspense, huh? This science fiction omnibus depicting a doctor who treats robot and humanoid problems takes place in the near future when humanoids with artificial intelligence account for 10% of the population. Hmm,
Ugh.
interesting.
Do they get to vote? That seems unfair.
Yeah. Sugar Apple Fairy Tale Part 2. I didn't see Part 1.
I
so
was unaware there was a part 1.
Yeah. Yohani the Parallax Sunshine in the Mirror.
That sounds
Never
boring.
heard of that. Let's see what we got. A Story of Bonds and Wounds. Interesting.
Okay. I'm gonna need more info on that one.
An orphan who one day encounters an eccentric disciple of his father's. The strange man takes him to his birthplace.
Wait.
Akashama.
They're doing a spy classroom now?
Spy Classroom Season 2. You didn't see the
Y- y-
first one?
I didn't. I mean, I
It's
watched Assassination Classroom. I didn't realize that they jumped on that bandwagon and made a spy classroom.
No, Spy Classroom was actually last year or the year before that. It's fairly new.
Well,
It's on
Assassination
it
Classroom is fairly old, so
Yeah. So it's on High Dive. So you've got it available. I think it had a dub.
what do you think? You like it?
I hadn't actually gotten to watching that one yet.
Okay.
But it was
Like I said, it sounds to me like an attempt to capitalize off the success of Assassination Classroom because that one was really popular.
have you heard of Synduality Noir? Well, that one's
Nope.
got an interesting name. Um, it's on Disney Plus. Well, forget that then. Like when did Disney Plus start getting into anime? Okay.
What else are they gonna do? They're failing at everything. They may as well try their hand at failing something else.
All right, this has got to be an idol show. Bang Dream, It's My Go.
Yeah, I have no interest in watching that.
I've never gotten into the idol shows at all.
No, not really. I
It's
think
one genre.
we're done here. We've seen all the stuff that
Yeah.
we want to see.
I will say
There's several good looking titles, but
it's got a dub and it just finished the second half of its season, basically the full storyline, so it's 24 episodes. Gundam The Witch from Mercury, excellent. Really loved it. And
yeah,
it
you said
has
that one was kind of a slice of life, so I should probably watch it, right?
it's got the craziest mix of slice of life high school
Uh-huh.
plus depressing anti-war
Uh-huh.
Gundam story, giant mech fights,
Uh-huh.
and romance drama. It's
Well, Chad, have you ever heard of Full Metal Panic?
I believe you've told me about it before.
Yeah. If you
I
like
would- but-
this one, you should probably go back and watch Full Metal Panic because it sounds like Full Metal Panic.
It does. I mean, it's to me, it reminded me a lot of Gundam Wing. And if anybody remembers Gundam Wing from the late '90s when it came over here, there was a big school element with Hero going with Raylina. Oh my God, they use that name a lot, don't they? I just realized. But yeah, if you watch the first episode, which is a prologue episode, it is dark and it hooked me from the prologue. Like, I think if you go watch, I'm always trying to promote Gundam. I love Gundam. It's one of my anime first loves. I watched it when I was in Japan in the 80s, going
I
back.
mean, it was no Robotech.
Gundam predates Robotech, you son of a
I
bitch.
know, but Robotech was.
I love Robotech too, but Gundam
Robotech
is
was the one that got its hooks in me. Gundam was the one that I was like, there's just too many fucking people and too much shit going on, and I have no idea. I can't follow this.
That's because Gundam had like a genuine story. Robotech was a mismatch of like 3 shows that they brought to America only on the premise that we need shows where they have vehicles that transform into robots. So they got a Macross, which was the airplanes transform into
Yep.
robots.
Yep.
I think then they got Mospita, which was the motorcycles that transform into robots. And I forgot the third movie was Southern Cavalry, the third show, and was that also motorcycles that transform into robots?
I don't know.
But
That's one of the things I do love about Full Metal Panic, though. Theirs are jets that transform into robots. Like it can be both a fighter jet and then like it'll turn into a mech. Or just like a
there's
hybrid version. It does very similar to what Robotech does, actually.
yeah, and I'm a big sucker for my first anime love was mechs. So Gundam, Robotech, those ones. I know they've fallen out of fashion. Like isekai and fantasy have kind of dominated anime for the
Dude,
last.
Isekai and Slice of Life are dominating right
Well,
now.
I would say even if you apply isekai as normally a fantasy one, I mean, there's a lot of fantasy
And
shows
that's
that
my
aren't
thing is
technically.
there are a lot of fantasy shows, but most of them are isekai. But even the ones that aren't, they're still fantasy shows.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, most of the ones that aren't are still reincarnation,
Uh-huh.
where a demon lord is reincarnated into a different era of the fantasy world, or
Yeah.
another character is reincarnated to another era of the same fantasy world. Those are borderline isekai tropes, really. I think because
Yeah. Like I said, isekai is isekai, slice of life, and obviously the shonen. But the shonen has always been popular. But like,
oh yeah,
yeah, some of the stuff we grew up with like the giant robots, and they had a lot more like really deep dramatic shit back in the day too.
well, even like if you take Voltron,
Mm-hmm.
when it came to the US it was Voltron, but in Japan it was Go Lion, right?
Yeah.
If you watch the Japanese, and it's on Crunchyroll, I think, if you watch the anime, it is dark as shit.
Oh yeah.
they
Yeah.
are they are killing people left and right. Like it is.
Well, they told darker stories.
Yeah, so even the stuff we got like Robotech when they brought Macross over, they
Mm-hmm.
cleaned it up. There was a lot more, craziness going on there. I I think I just wish there was more giant mech anime. It's fallen out of favor. I know that I'm hoping that Witch from Mercury, because it's been so popular, can start a little bit of a renaissance, hopefully, with that.
I think the last giant robot anime that I really got into was Big O. Big O was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm trying to like in the last. I mean, we've had no, we yeah, that might be the last one where it was a really big like where it was a mech kind of robot anime.
Yeah, like I said, they've kind of fallen out of favor. There hasn't
I
been a
mean,
whole lot of them lately.
Gundam was really the one carrying the water. I think the last one before Witch from Mercury was Iron Blood Orphans,
Well, here's the thing
which
for
was
you.
2015.
Here's the thing for you, because this is a little out of your wheelhouse, but you've heard of Dark Souls, right?
Yes.
Elden Ring,
Yep.
Bloodborne, all those
Of
titles.
course. Yeah, yeah.
Well, since they're kind of done with the Souls games right now, they're bringing back Armored Core, which is their
Oh.
giant robot game. So, if that does really well and becomes super popular, perhaps we will see a cascading effect where the popularity of giant robot anime comes back a little too.
That would be great.
Because I'm really hoping that this Armored Core game, I hope they don't fuck it up, because I love Armored Core and I really want a good Armored Core game.
I know. I would really like that. You know what I take about Gridman was sort of a mech anime, and that was fairly recent. But you probably don't care about that one.
Never heard of that one. Like, Like I said, the
Did-
last one I remember that I really enjoyed was Big O. The one that got me into the giant mech animes in the first place, weirdly enough, was Visions of Escaflowne.
I looked it up. The Big O is on High Dive, so
Yeah.
be able to watch that there.
Do you remember that one though? I'm going way back on Vision of Escaflowne
I remember that one. Yeah, that one.
with the girl from the track team who also would use the Amulet of Annihilation to read people's fortunes and shit.
Yeah, that. I mean,
And then she got
eh.
isekai'd into another world. Except she didn't die. She just, for some reason, teleported there.
Yeah, I do remember that. It had like there was like the mech armor stuff kind of. That one was kind of like night themed.
Yeah, like and there was like an empire that was just all crazy. There was a lot. That was a weird one, man. Like the one mech turned into a dragon. It was all over the place. But that being said, I mean, I think we've covered all our topics, and we're past 90 minutes. We should probably wrap this thing up soon.
Yep. Well, that is a good point. Hopefully, people got some good entertainment out of it. We're glad to be back. Slender feeling a little better, so that's good.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get some shorts out of the talk.
Oh yeah, we're with your anti matriarchal rage coming through.
Angry. I got angry. I'm not I am not anti-matriarchal. I am anti when one side thinks that they should be totally in charge for some reason. Like,
exactly.
why don't we pick the best people for the job and then we spread the love around a little more?
I think so. We've got two things going for. We got Bobby and Tina both said great stream. Thank you guys. Glad for you guys being here. The win that I'm going to take away from today is that Tina is now thinking she shouldn't waste her money on Barbie. And
I mean,
so
that
victory.
and the fact that we actually have an audience, that's crazy. Like, even if it is just a couple people, we had an audience and they stuck with us the whole time.
I know. It was a good show. Well, thanks for coming out, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.